Hello, this is Sammy with Special Needs Apps for Kids.
What you will need. You'll need an iPad, a screen protector, and a cleaning cloth and scraper.
So this is what you're going to need. You're going to need the iPad. Now notice I have left this all still in its plastic protective case. You're going to need a screen protector. This happens to be the brand that I use. I get them on the internet. In stores they're about 25 bucks, and on the internet they're like $5 for 3. So so this is the brand that I use, and in the box you get a lint-free microfiber, you get 3 screen protectors, and you get a card that you can push bubbles out of. The screen protector, real quick, has 2 sides to it. You can see it's labeled 1 and 2, and then so it's the screen protector, and then it's got adhesive on one side and then clear on the other. And so the instructions are pretty simple. You peel off the first side, you put it down on the iPad, and then you scrape out the bubbles and peel off the second side. So that's the theory. Now there is some issues in reality, and so before I take everything apart, let me give you a brief overview of how I like to do it, and then we'll get into the details. So the first thing I do is keep everything in the plastic to the absolute last minute. Second, notice I'm in a fairly lint-free environment. When I go to put this, what I do is I peel back the first one, and I get it sort of open, peeled back to about here, and then I put this corner down, so I get that in the right place in the corner, and then notice how this, I don't know that you can see that on the video, but there's like a little hole. So I put this corner down, I get that hole lined up, and I get that corner down, and then I pull and sort of walk up, and I'll show you this in a second, and then it's lined up. So if you do this, so instead of trying to try to get it, do it in the center, or try to do it and sort of eyeball it, I get it lined up down here first, and then get that all good, and then start peeling back. So I'll show you this. I'll show you all of this right now. Okay, so step 1, first thing you got to do is turn it upside down and get it out of the plastic. So we're going to do that right now. Let's see if I can do this with any sort of grace. So I am now pulling it out of the plastic, and I'm going to now flip it right side up. Now I'm going to do my best to not touch the iPad itself, the front of it. Okay, so theoretically I have an untouched, fairly pristine iPad. Now what I've done is I like to wipe it off and get all the lint off, just to make sure that there wasn't anything there from the manufacturing process, because anything left underneath the thing will create a bubble that you're not going to be able to get out. So the next step is to take, notice this says level, this says number 1, so I'm going to peel this back. I'm going to peel that corner right back, and I just sort of roll it back. So you see how I've done that? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down here. Let me get my fat head in the way. What I'm doing is I'm aligning this thing to the bottom of that. See, and I can see that it will lay out correctly. My hole's good, this side's aligned, this side's aligned, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slowly peel back and walk this thing up. And this way I get as few bubbles in there. This will take some practice, certainly. I've done a couple of these right now, so this will take some practice, but by walking it this way, what I'm able to do is I'm able basically to keep all the bubbles out of it. Now, I still have a lot of bubbles in here, so then you just take the little scraper card and you sort of push the bubbles out. Some of these bubbles will work themselves out over time, so you don't need to be perfect. I mean, I'm sort of pushing down, the bubbles are kind of already going out. See, you can see that they're sort of, I don't know if it's like a breathable membrane or what it is. So I sort of worked all the bubbles. So I still have a bubble right here. So you just sort of have to get in. Now, there you go. So you can push down. You can do this with the finger or the card, either way. Now the one thing I will tell you is, when using this kind of screen protector, you're going to definitely want to put some pressure once you get all the bubbles out of here. So on this hole here, I'm going to run over it with my hand again and put pressure on the whole thing before I take off the protective layer. The second protective layer is for scraping, so I'm not actually damaging the screen as I'm scraping through these things. So I'm just going to sort of push these bubbles out. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now I'm also going to put this in a protective case, so I can have a little bit of bubbles around the edges, no problem, because you're not going to see them once they're in the protective case. But so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of put some pressure on this whole thing, make sure that this is pretty far stuck down. The only way I know really how to do that is put your hand on it and just sort of use your hand as and put pressure across the whole thing. Just sort of make sure that it's all the way stuck. And I'm applying a fair amount of pressure with my hand, and I'm just trying to make sure that the adhesive is down there good. Alright, now that I've done that, so this is pretty good. I mean, you can see a couple of bubbles here, there's a couple of bubbles here, and there's a bubble around there, but if you just sort of, you can sort of work them out over time. And bubbles will dissipate, so it's not that big of a deal. This is actually pretty good. Right here, you can see that there's something trapped underneath there, and the bubble's just not coming out. Oh, maybe no. Maybe I got it. Okay. The last thing you got to do is, you can see here there's that number 2. The last thing we want to do is we want to remove that number 2. Now, if you just go pull up, it's going to cause the thing to peel back and actually peel up the protective layer. So the thing I like to do is I just sort of like to keep it at an angle. And notice it's already sort of peeling back. There we go. I'm trying to... And so I've got a little bit more, when I peeled this thing back, I got more bubbles, so I just put it back down and sort of scrape the bubbles out. It's a little tricky, but a little goofy. You can also use your hands to remove the bubbles. But I don't want to use the card directly on the plastic because I'm going to end up scraping the screen protector. Now, depending on what kind of screen protector, these can actually handle a fair amount of damage. So I'll show you in another video. My son I tend to put one of these on every month or so. Okay, so that is it. There's a couple of bubbles that we're going to work through and get them out, but that is putting a screen protector on an iPad. Thank you.